Red University. Philosophy of Marxism-Leninism. Lecture 1. Philosophy and the Problem of Truth in Marxism. Lecture read by M.V. Popov, Red University of the Workers' Academy Fund, and len.ru. What is philosophy? There are comrades who, hearing this question, immediately go to the internet and take the definition of philosophy from there. For foreigners who have not yet fully mastered the Russian language and are just learning, it would do. And what do they see there? Philo means love, Sophia means wisdom, and philosophy turns out to mean love for wisdom. This is a literary approach. Our approach is not literary, but scientific. Philosophy is the science of the most general laws of nature, society, and thinking. Philosophy is the science of the most general laws of nature, society, and thinking. Note that whenever a new thing is born, it is weaker than the old, even if this new thing is advanced. In this struggle between the new and the old, it is first defeated. This is understandable. For example, a baby against a grown-up person. And it is quite clear who will win. However, gradually strengthening, developing, and gradually rising, the new, the advanced, starts to drive out the old. And the old steps back, and finally, the new reigns supreme. And then a different new emerges, for which the former new is old, and everything repeats itself. For this reason, the struggle of the new with the old is endless and eternal. So we will never get a situation where there is no such struggle. This is the way the world works. From this point of view, from the point of view of the struggle of opposites, Marxism studies nature, society, and thought. Marxism has three sources and three, I would say, moments, as Hegel said. A moment is not just a part, but something that is inseparable from the whole. A moment of the whole is the same whole, only taken from some side. The philosophy of Marxism is inseparable from political economy and scientific socialism. Scientific socialism without political economy and without philosophy is just empty appeals, empty words. Political economy without dialectics would be not the political economy that Karl Marx created. Why? Because the method that Marx used in writing Capital is the dialectical method, but applied to the field of economic relations. Therefore, if we raise the question of how the different moments of Marxism, philosophy, scientific socialism, political economy, relate, these moments relate as sides of the whole, and the moments of this whole should be studied in Marxism as a whole. Philosophy studies the universal, not just the particular and the singular, and this is very important. The definition of philosophy as a science of general laws, of universal laws of nature, society, and thinking means that if you have studied the universal laws of nature, society, and thinking, then in your field you concretize it to the particular and the singular. In the field where you work, in which you conduct research or create something, but at the same time you know the most basic, the universal, in relation to everything else. This allows society to develop as a whole and not fall apart. And then there are fewer cases when seemingly good people, even the foremost in their field, in all other fields support and spread the most ridiculous things. Lenin said about such people that they have professional idiocy. Idiot is from the Greek idiotis. Idest, an individual, a private person, a simple, inexperienced, ignorant person, an ignoramus. For example, Lenin wrote that one cannot fully understand Marx's Capital without understanding and reading Hegel's logic. And Hegel's logic is the pinnacle of the development of dialectics, starting from Heraclitus and Aristotle, and in turn, if interpreted materialistically, it is the basis of the philosophy of Marxism, dialectical materialism. In Capital, Marx discovered, or better put, revealed, deduced, the economic law of motion of capital. He showed capital in motion, in transitions. Some people spend a lot of time studying Capital, but divide it into pieces, write out many quotations from Capital, but it is better to read half a volume, but in its entirety, than 3 volumes of quotations which are not connected with each other by the logic of deducing one category from another, previous category, because all connections are broken. Hegel said, only a corpse has parts. We're not saying that it is not necessary to have corresponding departments in hospitals where corpses are dissected, because I, for example, will have a surgery. If I, for example, want to have a surgery, I would prefer that the surgeon who will cut me would first cut a certain number of corpses, and then he would cut me. That is, it is absolutely necessary part, an absolutely necessary part. You cannot do without it. But it is not necessary to turn the study of the living only into the study of corpses. It is necessary to learn to look at the subject of study as a living whole. You have to admit, the study of a hair is not reduced only to the study of hair meat. It is necessary to study the behavior of a live hare or a rabbit, its physiology and so on, which cannot be done by studying the parts of a rabbit on a preparator's table. Marxism-Leninism is characterized by the fact that it studies the whole and as a whole. For example, I could attack someone verbally. Have you got shortcomings? Shortcomings are negative qualities, right? So are these shortcomings of yours just personal? Are they aimed against you or against society? If you are a good person and your shortcomings are your denial, it is a denial of the good that you have. And society only supports your good qualities, which means your negative qualities are against society. Don't you agree? Well, go ahead. List your shortcomings, and I will now, so that you don't forget, take notes. And then, when I finish, you'll come over here and write below, the above is an accurate, correct record of my statement. And then what do I do? And then we'll have to tell that to certain people. And sure enough, you'll be arrested for antisocial behavior. And that's what they often do. And I said the correct thing. Correct? And Hegel, a wise man, a philosopher, said that we should distinguish between what is correct, what is reliable, that is, what is verified, confirmed by facts, evidence, trustworthy. And we should distinguish that from what is true. We should distinguish between what's trustworthy and what's true. Are you here for truth or correctness? If you are after correctness, then you have come to the wrong place. You will verify some assertions and they will be confirmed one way or another. But everyone has got shortcomings. Is there a person here without shortcomings? There are no people without shortcomings because every person is contradictory, and contradiction is the unity and struggle of opposites. Since there is a unity and struggle of opposites, everyone has one and the opposite of it, the other. Another thing is that one person in whom the positive prevails as a whole is a good person. But a good person also has got shortcomings. There are no good people who are without shortcomings. If anyone insists that he is good and without shortcomings, they're not a living person. They're a dead person, or it's just a fiction. Conversely, there are no such scoundrels who do not have some good qualities that help them to wind into favor, abuse your trust. There is such an article in the criminal code, abuse of trust, fraud. And fraudsters parasitize on this good quality, trust. So contradiction is the unity and struggle of opposites. We immediately note and fix as a key point of this lecture that philosophy is not only concerned with correctness and trustworthiness, it is concerned with truth. Hegel's Science of Logic begins precisely with the question that truth is not honored in our time. We do not say that truth is not honored, but it is simply not dealt with, or as a rule is not dealt with. And in general, truth is above correctness and trustworthiness. Truth is contradictory. And if we want to know the true picture, we must take what we study and reflect it in our consciousness as living, and everything living is contradictory. Therefore, the problem of truth in Marxism has to do with understanding everything we examine dialectically. That is, through the unity and struggle of opposites. This is why one of the most important textbooks for us is Hegel's Science of Logic. Marx, for example, said, "My attitude to Hegel is very simple. Hegel is my teacher." You'll say that Hegel had shortcomings. He was an idealist. Yes, these are shortcomings. All teachers have shortcomings. After all, Marx and Engels were also idealists at first, until their second teacher, Feuerbach, who wrote The Essence of Christianity, came along. Thanks to him, Marx and Engels changed into materialists. They do say that they turned Hegel upside down, but I think it's the other way around. Feuerbach turned Marx and Engels upside down, and then they stood on their feet, and before that they were standing on their heads. And after that they became consistent, A. materialists, and B. dialectical materialists, and the very dialectical materialism appeared about which Marx wrote, describing the method of capital. And the method is the realization of the form of internal self-motion of the content of the investigated subject. If you understand how there was an internal self-motion of production, and not some interference in this process from the outside, then this is the method of self-motion in economics. Marx said, quote, "There is no royal road to science, and only those who do not dread the fatiguing climb of its steep paths have a chance of gaining its luminous summits." End quote. I think that a person who will study Hegel's Science of Logic will at first be in this strange state when nothing is clear. I was lucky because I was a mathematician. Everything was incomprehensible at first. Sometimes you listen to half of the semester and listen, and nothing is clear. Only when the semester is over and you start reading the lectures you've written down, you start analyzing all these theorems, and then it becomes clear. And what is complicated and what is complex? It is something composed of simple things. An example is the dialectic of Marx's Capital. From what does he composes everything? From the commodity. If you take a commodity, you get capital. That's why when such practitioners as Khrushchev, Gorbachev, and others turned to the commodity, to the market, we got back to capitalism. So, the main issue of philosophy is truth. Truth is the correspondence of a concept to the object under study. Are there non-contradictory objects? No. So truth must also be seen as a contradiction. And the Science of Logic is precisely the book where contradictory concepts are both considered and deduced from one another. Truth is the correspondence of a concept to an object and an object to a concept. For example, when we begin to look into an object that is new to us, we begin with pure being. Is it there? The object is. Otherwise, what are we looking into? And what else can we say about this object? Nothing. Nothingness. If there is nothing, then we have already said about nothing. That is, we have nothing of our knowledge about the subject of consideration. Is there nothing? Yes, at least in our reasoning. So this nothingness of knowledge, has transitioned into being. So what do we have? Nothingness transitions into being. Being transitions into nothingness. And so there are no separate nothingness, and there is no separate being. but there is only a motion of disappearance of being into nothingness, and a motion of nothingness into being. This is called the becoming. Becoming is the first contradictory category in Hegel's Science of Logic. And this contradiction further unfolds, and all subsequent categories are also contradictory. In dialectical materialism, there is nothing that does not change. There are no such things, no objects, no things, no people, nothing. There is not a single category that wouldn't contain an opposite, and with it, a contradiction. And for example, all of mathematics abstracts from this. It turns out that that is actually a universal law is absolutely all contradictory. And we take everything, almost absolutely, and examine it as non-contradictory in mathematics. Although we know that if we, for example, bought milk, and despite the fact that something is added to it, if it stays outside the fridge for a while, it will become sour milk. And sour milk is no longer milk. The milk has changed into something else. Of course, you can make curd from it, and from curd you can make cheese, but cheese and curd are different concepts of dairy products. And how do you study all these transitions without involving contradictions? So the main direction of our training is to master the dialectical method and its application to other parts and moments of Marxism. Philosophy, being a theoretical science, exists in order to be applied to political economy and scientific socialism. This approach allows us to cognize the truth, and the problem of truth is the most important thing for science. Questions and answers. Can dialectics be regarded as a section of philosophy about thought? Dialectics is not a section of philosophy. It is the main method of philosophy. You want to make a section out of the method, and a section means to divide. And the main thing that Hegelian dialectics is against division. Dialectics permeates everything. There is the dialectic of Marx's capital. It is present in political economy. There is the dialectic of class struggle. It is present in scientific socialism. And there is dialectic in its pure form, which is expounded in Hegel's Science of Logic, and it is present as a special subject of study. But that doesn't mean that it is absent from other moments of Marxism. Therefore, it is not necessary to separate it, to isolate it, and to portray it in such a way that it is in itself, and scientific socialism is in itself. What is the relationship between correctness, trustworthiness, and truth? Correctness is a category that refers to a side of a contradiction. Say you are a good person. This is correct. But you have shortcomings, and this is also correct. Let's verify if you're a good person. That would be trustworthiness. And truth is when you should be taken as a whole, as a living thing in the unity of positive and negative. And either you are a positive person with negation or a bad person with merits. Truth is dialectical, contradictory, and necessarily requires solving the question of what is the whole, what is being, and what is its negation. At one point, next question. At one point you said whatever you name is contradictory, and at another point you said that whatever is alive is contradictory. Which is correct? Both are. Everything is contradictory. Let's take a rock. Is it there? Don't you know that all stones wear away, deteriorate over time? Living things evolve, but a stone, it changes. You don't have to develop for a contradiction. Contradiction is necessary for development, but development is not necessary for contradiction. End of lecture. Self-check questions. What is philosophy? What is a moment? Why does only a corpse have parts? What is singular, particular, universal? What is the whole? What is a contradiction? What is truth? What is correctness? What is trustworthiness? What is dialectical materialism? What are the simple and the complex? What is the central question of philosophy? What is dialectics? What is mandatory for development? What does the commodity lead to? What does dialectic mean as the source and moment of Marxism? Why is truth so important in Marxism? The end. Bye-bye.